This is the new Peugeot 308 SW. It's boldly styled with a big boot and has plenty of creature comforts. Is it enough to tempt buyers who are increasingly choosing SUVs and crossovers instead? SW is Peugeot speak for estate, so this is the estate version of the firm's 308 family hatchback, and it's a rival for the estate versions of the Ford Focus, Skoda Octavia and Seat Leon. Now, not all that long ago, Peugeots were rather boring to look at, but that's changed recently, and the latest 308 is no exception. It's all muscular curves, sleek headlights, fang-like daytime running lights, and a frankly mesmerising grille design. Back here, the styling is a little bit fussier than the hatchback version, but it's still a smart-looking thing, and it's about as far away from the boring estate car vibe as you can get. Boot space is quite important for an estate car, and although the outgoing version had 650 litres, this new one has 608, which is still a very spacious boot, as you can see what I've got in here. And if I take these two scooters out, I can also fit the double pram in. That's less than a Seat Leon or Skoda Octavia estate, but better than a Ford Focus estate and better than most equivalent sized SUVs or crossovers. A Nissan Qashqai provides just 504 litres of boot space, for example. You can fold the rear seats down via these useful grab handles in the boot, which is ideal if you arrive back at your car with a bulky load but have forgotten to drop the rear seats in preparation. Where the old 308 SW let itself down was in rear legroom, despite having a cavernous boot. Now, this new version gets an extra 55mm on the wheelbase, that is the space between the front wheels and the rear wheels. And the estate version, the SW, gets another 55mm on top of the extra 55mm that the hatchback gets compared with the previous generation. I hope you caught all of that. So what that essentially means is that there is more legroom and therefore rear passengers are happier. Inside, what that translates to is a pretty decent rear legroom. Counteracting that though is the low roof shape, because although it gives the car its sleek appearance, it also means headroom is a little limited. If you have older children or regularly carry taller rear seat passengers, a Skoda Octavia would be a better bet. However, if you want an interior that stands out from the crowd, then the Peugeot 308 certainly delivers. Peugeot's interior designs have gone from traditional to frankly wacky over the past decade, and broadly speaking, the changes have been for the positive. The small steering wheel that's set below the instruments so you look over it to read the digital driver's display looks and feels good, and the overall design is pleasingly upmarket and avant-garde. There are some traditional Peugeot elements though. For example, these seats. They manage to be both comfortable and squishy and supportive, and that's something that Peugeot has done very well in many of its cars over the past few decades. There's an awful lot of personalisation you can do with the setup of the infotainment screen and the digital driver's display, but to do so for the first time is quite a faff. Once you've done that though and got it set up to your preference, it's actually pretty easy to use despite being mainly touchscreen. There are some physical buttons down here and on the steering wheel, and there's some angled touch buttons which are easier to use on the move compared with some of its rivals. Mind you, the fact that the air conditioning takes so long to adjust is a bit annoying, but hey, at least there's a physical volume control knob, and a rather posh one at that. As for the displays themselves, they're crisp, clear, and it doesn't suffer too badly from lag when you're swiping and tapping away. And check this out, when you've got it in reverse gear, when you change the angle of the steering wheel, the camera moves with it. As well as looking high-tech and upmarket, the 308 backs this up with plenty of standard equipment. All models get climate control, cruise control, rear parking sensors and automatic lights and wipers, while this mid-spec Allure Premium also gets kits such as the reversing camera we mentioned, keyless entry, adaptive cruise control, plus wireless phone charging and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Top spec cars get bigger wheels, electrically adjustable seats and an upgraded sound system. The sweet spot of the range though is this mid-range Allure Premium. Power comes from a range of engines, including a 130 horsepower 1.5 litre diesel, a plug-in hybrid with a choice of two power outputs, 180 or 225 horsepower, and this, the 1.2 litre petrol, which gets the same 130 horsepower as the diesel. Still, 1.2 litres seems rather small to haul a relatively large family car, so how does it fare? Pretty well is the answer, although it does take a sluggish 9.7 seconds to get to 62 miles per hour from a standstill. That said, when you're on the move, there's plenty of acceleration on hand and it never feels unduly stretched. The fly in the ointment is the 8-speed automatic gearbox, which is a bit dithery and slow to respond at times. It's more responsive when you switch it into the sport driving mode, but then you will pay for that at the petrol pump. And the gear change is smooth, which is at least some compensation. Speaking of smooth, the 308 manages to complement those squishy seats with a very comfortable drive that manages to smooth out lumps and bumps in the road beautifully. In fact, the 308 SW is the perfect companion for a long drive. Should you be up for some more enthusiastic country road driving, the 308 SW is fairly happy to play along. There's a fair amount of body lean in the corners, but you get the sensation that there's plenty of grip too. The brakes, meanwhile, feel reassuringly firm, and the well-weighted steering is quick to react without making the car feel nervous. It is certainly much more fun to drive than most family crossovers. Driving in a more economically conscious way should see you around 50 miles per gallon from the 1.2 model. The diesel will be marginally more economical, while the plug-in hybrid models could be even more efficient if you can make use of their short electric-only ranges. So then, what to make of the new 308 SW? Well, it manages to pull off spacious practicality with stylish design, a trick that family estate cars haven't always been able to pull off historically. And yes, some cars do drive better than the 308 SW, but it still manages to put a smile on your face. In fact, provided you don't mind the styling inside and out and rear seat headroom isn't a priority, it could make for a very satisfying ownership experience indeed. But what do you reckon? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and head to cargurus.co.uk to find loads of great deals from top-rated dealers.